For 14 seasons, my guest tonight was one of the most feared hitters the game of football has ever known. Since being drafted in the first round by the San Francisco 49ers, Ronald Mandel Lott used the mental toughness he developed as a child to become an NCAA All-American, an 8-time All-Pro, and a 4-time Super Bowl champion. He would eventually retire with 63 career interceptions, 10 Pro Bowl selections, and over 1,100 tackles. But before he became a Pro Football Hall of Famer, did you know he worked at a steel mill during college, developed his famous tackling style by studying boxers, was elected to the Pro Bowl at 3 different positions? Tonight we'll learn what makes this undeniable icon who he is. A man who once said, "If you can believe it, the mind can achieve it." Please welcome number 42, NFL legend, Ronnie Lott.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You were even focused walking out here. That's the Ronnie Lott difference. That's the focus that I've seen from those eyes peering from behind that face mask all those years.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting to me about being focused is that you're always aware of the moment. And I'm a believer that you got to exhaust all moments in life. And I think a lot of times we forget to exhaust all moments. And being here with you and having this opportunity to chat with you and to talk with you, and yeah, you got to be in the moment. You got to really appreciate where you're at right now.
Yeah, I think the story is so great. I mean, born in 1959 in Albuquerque. I know you moved shortly thereafter, but you're the oldest of 3. And I know, and there he is, a little Ronnie Lott up on the screen. Look at that.
The hair, where did that all go?
The hair?
Yeah.
I mean, and that looks like an interesting cut you were working back then, too. Oldest of 3, as I mentioned, and I would say, just knowing your story and having talked with your father, a kid who grew up in a household that was filled with love and parents who really showed their kids that they were all in with them.
When I look back at my mom and dad, it was constantly the idea of what more can we do for you? And I think that when I think about our family and my brother and sister, it did have a lot of love, but more importantly, what can we do for you guys? How can we help you achieve your best? And I think the other thing that's really interesting to me was that you have to care. You know, sometimes we forget about caring for others and servicing for others. And I think that being a family member and somebody puts us on this earth, we all have that responsibility of making sure that whether you like them or not, that you pay your respects to them.
I love that you used to be kind of the water boy or the towel boy for your dad's basketball team when he was playing in these military rec leagues. He wanted you around exposed to those.
Yeah, I think what was great about it for me was I was always in awe of the guys that made the military first team, or the military, or the all Air Force team, or the all Marine team, or the all service team. I was just in awe of people that could accomplish their best in their life.
You got to Washington at an intense time in our nation's history. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassinated, and there's rioting, and you saw that as a boy, and the buildings burning, and there was looting, and you went into some store to get candy or something, and then the cops show up, and you're running away hoping, what, they don't shoot at you?
Like a lot of things in life, you run away to protect everything you have. And as we all know, when you're running away to protect everything you have, there's a sense of urgency. Running away from that fire and running away from the 7-Eleven that had burned down in our neighborhood, and to see, you know, the destruction at that time, again.
I mean, what a mark that leaves. What experience, what did that teach you?
We fight for the things that we think are right. And I think that at that time, there were a lot of people that said that this isn't right. And in sports, that's the essence of what makes sports so great is that you can find those moments where you can stand. And early on, I kind of realized that people do stand for certain causes.
When you're 10 years old, your dad decides to move the family to California. I have to show you this picture because anybody who knows Ronnie Lott as an NFL player, this is a peewee football picture. Now that looks like a kid that's about to just light you up coming over the middle. I mean, come on, Ronnie, that's the look. I mean, that look never changed.
So I'm about 10 years old. That's the San Bernardino Jets. And if you guys remember, there was this commercial Dick Butkus had. And my name is Dick Butkus, and my job is plugging holes. And, and I remember that commercial, and so I was trying to give that look at that time.
That's your best Dick Butkus.
That was my best Dick Butkus moment, man, is for everything I did, there's a moment that I can relate to another athlete that showed me how to act, what to be like. And so that was a Dick Butkus moment.
At some point, football, you know that you can play this sport to a certain degree.
Well, I didn't know. I wasn't one of those kids that grew up saying, boy, I'm going to make it into pro sports. I was one of those kids that was like, you mean, it's here in the now. It's being in the moment. And
so you're not thinking down the road and, oh, I'm going to turn this into some multi-million-dollar career. No. So Bill Christopher comes into your life as a coach early on, before USC, before the San Francisco 49ers, and it seemed like he hit your life at the right time and saw talent in you football-wise that maybe others didn't, maybe you didn't see in yourself.
Well, what Bill saw, Bill Christopher was a high school coach at Eisenhower High School, guys, and Bill put a lot of fire and passion into the idea of playing the game of football the right way, where he got us to not be average people, but people that were excited about playing the game, and he was very intense. Before every game, we would lay in the gym on the floor, and he'd have the lights out, and all of a sudden, the music of Patton would come on, and it would talk about Americans and why Americans win. And it would talk about the idea and the quest of why we are able to overcome.
You were recruited so heavily, you had your own mailbox in the faculty lounge.
This is Rialto, Eisenhower, so...
Quit downplaying it. I mean, these were major programs that were looking at you.
Yeah, there were major programs.
Is it fair to say that you could have gone to, let's say, a lesser program and kind of been the big guy, the big new guy coming in, but one of the appealing aspects to going to USC was that you were going to be challenged, that you were now the little guy in the really big pond? I mean, football doesn't get any better than USC.
Well, you know what? I thought about going to UCLA because I was a Bruins fan. I loved John Wooden. I loved everything about him. And then going to USC and Coach Robinson saying, look, if you come here, you could play as a freshman.
Because UCLA and Terry Donahue said you're not going to play as a freshman.
He said, no way you could play as a freshman. John Robinson was completely open to it. If you're good enough and you think you have a shot, we'll give you a shot. And to me, the great thing about life is when people provide opportunities. And if you could figure it out and make it happen, it can happen. And so, yeah, I had a chance to start a couple of games my freshman year.
I mean, what, 4 games in, somewhere you're starting?
Yeah, I'm starting, and I realized that as I was starting my freshman year, there were a lot of things that were moving really fast, and I didn't know what to expect.
Did you think you'd made a mistake picking? It was too big of a bite?
Yep, there was a moment where I thought, man, what did I do? I made a bad decision because it was moving faster, it was tough. And then the last game against UCLA that year, I decided to blitz the quarterback.
When you were told to play coverage, right?
When I was told to play coverage. It's not a good decision.
So you freelance.
So I freelance. I went in to go for the sack. I thought I had John Shira. I'm this close to John Shira. I'm about to knock him down. And he throws the ball to the tight end. He catches the ball. They take the lead. My coach, Don Lindsay, is like furious. Bob Toledo's furious. They're like, "What did you do? You just lost the game for us." Luckily, we ended up winning the game my freshman year. And the next day, I wake up, I go in. Coach Lindsay said, "You got to apologize." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You got to apologize to Willie Crawford." I said, "Apologize for what?" He goes, "We took him out of the game for you to go in, and you made a mistake. You have to apologize to him." And the feelings that I had at that moment of realizing that I had let the team down, I had let Willie down, and let a lot of people down, and to be humbled enough to be able to go in and say, "I'm sorry," I'll never forget that feeling. And I'll never forget that feeling for the rest of my life, because that's a feeling that I never want to ever happen in my life again, because it was just the toughest thing to make that kind of mistake and to know that you cost a lot of people a lot of heartache for that one moment.
I love the idea that after that freshman year, you go home, you cover the tight end mentally every day while you're working on your craft, but you also make the goal to, one, become a starter, full-time starter, and two, get your degree in 4 years, which was, semi-rare at that point to do it within the 4-year time period.
Yeah, I think that the latter of those two, of knowing that, as John Robinson said, he goes, "You're a great competitor. You're doing everything you can, but you're not doing everything you can." And I was like, "What do you mean, Coach?" He goes, "You're not competing in everything you do in life." And I had never really thought about that or heard that. And to me, to this day, that was one of the great moments in my life when John said, "You got to compete in every aspect of your life." And so I decided to go to summer school for the next 3 years. And because I knew that I needed to compete every day.
You have a chance to play as a sophomore Michigan in the Rose Bowl for the national championship, and I'm wondering what that's like for the intense Ronnie Lott preparing for a national championship game in the Rose Bowl against Michigan.
Michigan was by far one of the best teams that we had faced. But playing in games like that, I realized that you're in front of 100,000 fans. It's the granddaddy. It's the biggest game of them all.
There it is, and you end up as co-national champions with Alabama. Senior year, you're named captain by John Robinson. I mean, you think about, you come in and did I bite off more than I could chew? Everything's moving fast, and now you're All-American, you're captain, you've been national champion. Man, this is a tremendous career at USC that I know you're awfully proud of and should be.
I'm really just proud of being there at the moment and proud of just knowing. I'll never forget, somebody says, "Well, you're going to be running for the NFL." And I was like, "Running for the NFL for what?" And they said, "Well, you could possibly get drafted." And I was like, and they said, "You could be possibly a first-round pick." And I was like, "What?"
Wait, you're not even thinking about the NFL or realizing where you stack up against the rest of the country?
I know where I stacked up against the guys that were in college football.
What'd you want to be? What were your goals then, if you're not thinking NFL?
My goals at that time, were, I thought I was going to, if I left football, I was going to graduate and I was going to go to the Air Force and try to be an officer in the Air Force.
You wanted to follow in your dad's footsteps.
Look, when I used to watch my dad put on that uniform, and when I used to have to shine his shoes, and I have to shine his belt buckle, and the pride that I had to take in making sure that I could see myself and knowing how and knowing what that meant, yeah, I was going in that direction. It had not worked out. I had an injury, but I knew that I had a career in doing that.
Are you more proud of being the number 8 overall pick when you came out, or of getting your degree in 4 years?
I'm more proud of getting my degree in 4 years. And the reason why I'm more proud of that is that to be the first in our family to graduate, education to me, even to this day, is so vital.
Tell us what it was like to be drafted by the 49ers, a team that really hadn't been winning for a long time.
Well, we didn't have ESPN. You didn't have any of the things to watch the draft. You're sitting there and you're, thinking, okay, the phone's gonna ring, and the phone rings. I'm like, oh, this is unbelievable. The phone's ringing. So I pick up the phone. It's Dennis Thurman. He goes, man, you're going to Green Bay. I go, what? He goes, you're going to Green Bay, man. You got to get that big raccoon coat on, and you're going to have a great time. And I was like, Green Bay? He goes, yep. And I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to Green Bay. He goes, just kidding.
Oh, my God.
So that was, because you had to wait for the call. And about an hour later or so, I get a call. Hey, this is Delia. I'm with the San Francisco 49ers, and we're here. We just drafted you. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see you. I'm like, no way.
And nobody has any idea what this 49er machine is going to become. What are you thinking coming in? What do you want to be?
Well, when I first got there, I remember Ray Rhodes saying to me, hey, look, stop standing in the back of the line. I was like, but Ray, I'm standing in the back of the line because I want to make sure I'm fitting in. I don't need to be in front. He's like, no, you got to move up to the front of the line.
But there you are in 1981, and they move you to left corner. You're an unbelievable athlete, but the switch to left corner, I don't know that people understand how incredible that is, that you made that switch. What was that like, and were you prepared for it, and how did you prepare for the season at that spot?
The hard part about being in that position is really having the confidence to believe that, like I said, waking up every day, that you got a chance of making a great play. And you have a chance of recovering, and you have a chance of literally getting beat every play, and knowing that even though you got beat every play, you still have to come back. Those are the moments in your life where you got to believe, like a lot of things, and you never know what can happen.
Well, I love where the story ends in '81. I mean, you got the Dallas Cowboys. They'd been multiple Super Bowl champions. You beat the Dallas Cowboys in the regular season that year, but people said, oh, it's a fluke. You're building as the season goes. But no, it's easy to say now, but nobody knew how great this team was going to be. And this NFC Championship game just set it up. Going into this game, where are you guys as a young team, and where's your belief along the lines of, can we beat this great Dallas Cowboy team?
Well, I can tell you, going into that game, there were so many people that were so pessimistic about that game because of the fact that they had folded a number of times against the Cowboys.
49ers.
And the 49ers have folded 2 or 3 times in playoff games against the Cowboys. Matter of fact, I'll never forget this. This kid was yelling and screaming in the car, and I was like, man, is it road rage or what's going on? And he was like, beat the Cowboys, beat the Cowboys. And so you had this quest of can we do it?
Rookie year.
Wow. For the San Francisco 49ers to prevail and to change the dialogue of that relationship And to be able to go out for that decade, to be able to beat America's team, I grew up a Redskins fan.
So you automatically didn't like the Cowboys.
So you know, over the years, how many times I would see the Cowboys beat the Redskins. To play against them, to compete against them, to know the things that I knew about who they are and the history of the game, to win, to then be able to dominate that series. Yeah, unbelievable for a lot of reasons.
You're going into Super Bowl 16 as a young team. I want to know the level of belief, because another layer in this is the great Bill Walsh. What did he teach you specifically?
I've never seen anyone talk about excellence in a way that forced all of us to think about it to the point where it frustrated us. It was hard. That was Bill. Bill was just one of those guys that wanted excellence all the time.
When we look at the highlights of Super Bowl 16, your first Super Bowl, this is a 20-7 game late in the third quarter, and Cincinnati has it inside the 10. And we want to show part of that defensive series for you guys.
Go again, and that's what Forrest. That's a 6-21. They are the world champion, San Francisco 49ers.
That's pretty cool.
That's good to see, isn't it? I mean, that was a heck of a defensive stand there. How'd that feel?
That felt unbelievable. You got to remember that in moments like that where you're sitting there and you have inches, and I always say this, is that how amazing that inches define your life.
I want to know the hitting style.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I know the philosophies, but there had to be something that you were reading, studying, or is that just born into Ronnie Lott?
The great thing about hitting, to me, the great thing about hitting is it's a belief. And the reason it's a belief is that there's an element inside you that allows you to be able to understand the belief. And I've seen it a number of times where not everyone is committed to the cause of the belief. And my point is that the belief around that is the same belief that we've seen so many great people find themselves working through. One of the great hitters of all time is Mike Tyson. I never watched the punch. I watched his legs. I watched his toes, because you could see the energy from his legs all the way through his torso, all the way up to his arms, and then you could see the punch. And you could realize why a guy of his size and his stature could go up against some of the best heavyweights of all time.
Your hits built through your legs and came out, these kind of oversized shoulder pads. I mean, nobody wanted any part of you, but it was a full body effort on your part.
I call it woo. And the reason I call it woo is because when I watch a game and I see that woo moment, it's funny because I'm starting to think about it.
Right, now, I feel like you're going to come across here and just jack me up. You set out the goal for yourself.
Somebody said do it.
Yeah. Find out who that was. Get him out of here right now. We have this quote on the wall. It says, if you can believe it, the mind can achieve it. I think this is a good time to drop that into this conversation, because that's what you're talking about. I mean, the mental side of it and the belief that you had when you were a player.
Yeah, and it's so evident with everybody that we come across. It's so evident that when you are with a Jerry Rice that worked harder than anybody that's ever played the game. So there are a lot of things that I think we learn about sports that fundamentally keeps us going each and every day. And yeah, if you can believe it, you can achieve it.
1982, there's a strike-shortened season. 83, you guys lose to the Redskins. That's their moment in the sun. And then 84, it comes back around. And, you know, we have another Super Bowl for this 49er team in the '84 season. Tell me about that. And, you know, you'd been through a couple of down years, you know, certainly frustrating in '82. But, you know, where are you as a group? And, you know, there are some who think this, you know, we're getting into the real, this is the crest of the wave for that first version of the 49er team.
Yeah, I think that where we're at is that 83 game of losing that game, the way we lost it, losing it in Washington, knowing that we had a shot, knowing that we were coming back, knowing that we had all of this, you know, momentum and to find a way at the end of that game, which it was a penalty called on me, to lose that game. They then come back the next season and then play the Super Bowl at Stanford.
Yeah, you're playing in Stanford Stadium, and you're playing a Miami Dolphins team that's got this guy, Dan Marino, who threw for 48 touchdowns, 5,000 plus yards, and you are going around telling the media, oh, we can't cover these guys. You're like playing mind games before the game ever starts. You're telling everybody, oh, we got no chance. We can't. It's the great Miami Dolphins. This is Dan Marino. We can't cover these guys. I mean, that's hilarious to me.
Playing a little gamesmanship, but as we all know, when you think of that team and you think about what they were able to do that year, I mean, they were phenomenal. I mean, the Bears couldn't stop them. I mean, there were a lot of people that really had a tough time playing against this team. And I think what's interesting to me about Dan and the quest was Dan was one of those guys, and still is. His will to win is phenomenal. You talking about a belief? I just knew that every time I would watch film on him, I knew that it was going to be a long day, and the long day was because of the fact that we have to find a way to get to him.
So it's interesting because early in that game.
No, I was thinking like, and like I said, maybe we can't cover him.
Mind games, and it might be true.
True, exactly.
So that's not a good start.
That's not a good start. That's when your booty hole is really tight. That is not a good start.
What specific adjustments did you guys make?
I think we had to, in that game, we started playing a little bit more man-to-man. We started forcing ourselves to get up on them. As you saw, they were running wide open. I think we came out with this thought of maybe we could play zone defense. And clearly, playing zone defense against Dan and knowing Dan like I know him, it is very difficult to play zone defense.
He'll find holes.
He's going to find holes. And so in a game like this, we had to change our coverages. We had to change the complexity of what we needed to do to win the game.
Let's see how Super Bowl 19 ended.
A lot of time. Marino had to hurry as the safety blitz for the 49ers was on. Frustrating afternoon for the Dolphins and head coach Don Shula. Super Bowl 19 is in the record book.
I feel like there's like two incarnations of the 49ers, but is that the best team you were a part of?
It's funny because I think that was the best team. And I've had friends that have said, no, that's not the best team. You think of the 88 team.
I mean, now you're talking about Jerry
Rice and that
Taylor.
group. But I think that this team, the 84 team, was the best team. And the reason I think it was the best team, if you go man to man and you go down the roster and you look at all the great players that we had, all the talent we had on both sides, it's a really great group of collective athletes who really cared about being their best.
What's your dad saying about all this success, and where's he on this ride with you?
Well, I think Dad at this time is sitting there probably going, I don't understand all of it. I'm having a lot of fun. The great thing that people don't appreciate is that the fun that your parents are having or the fun that your family's having, in our case, was a little bit different. And the reason it was a little bit different is that we had this incredible owner. And this incredible owner that we had a way of allowing every member to feel like they were so important to the outcome of the game. Because Eddie DeBartolo, before,
he was a giver, right?
He was a giver, and before every Super Bowl, he would buy or give or hand out to every family member something. And I'll never forget my mother saying, this is unbelievable. I never thought that anybody cared. To me,
it felt like a family, right?
It felt like a family. More importantly, he created this idea of being accountable to each other all the time, in every aspect. And what it created was everybody wanted to come play for the 49ers.
85, you moved back to safety. And I'm wondering I know you had a shoulder injury that was involved in there a little bit, but what was the driving force to get you off corner back to safety?
We played against the Miami Dolphins earlier in 85, and Nat Moore kept turning me around like I was a little spin school, and he kept getting me out of position, and I realized, and the coaches realized that my corner days are over with. And so that changed the dynamics of our group to the point where, you know, a year later, 2 years later, now we have a whole new secondary. One of the great things that Bill Walsh was able to do from 84 to the 88 Super Bowl was he was able to literally change the whole team.
Well, fair enough to say that Bill didn't fall in love with anybody over the years?
It's fair enough to say that Bill didn't fall in love with anyone.
Yeah, he was willing to say goodbye.
Yeah, he was willing to say it, but the great thing about a coach is that if you think about any great business, you have to be able to say goodbye to some great employee. You have to let somebody go, even though when they're not ready. And Bill was one of those guys that would say, look, I know I'm gonna have to cut you before you're ready, but it's gonna happen. And that happens in sports where you have to let people go, and yet this dynasty that Bill was trying to build was about allowing others like Jeff Fuller, like Chet Brooks, like others to come along and hopefully take that role on to be champions.
So in 1988, you call it the season from hell. You start out roughly 6-5. It's the young Montana quarterback controversy is starting to really take shape. That was a tough start to that season.
That was a tough start for that season, and the reason why it was a tough start is that in the 87 season, Joe got hurt. We're not really sure if he's going to make it. Is he going to be around? And now we got a quarterback controversy. And we got a quarterback controversy because Steve Young finishes out the year, has a great playoff game, tries to bring us back, and we go into training camp, and I know this, that training camp was uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Well, I mean, my God, you've got the great Joe Montana. You've got Steve Young, who's a Hall of Famer himself eventually. Where did you stand on the Montana-Young tug-of-war?
Well, it's easy for me. And the reason it was easy for me was that it's easy to stand on the side of Joe. And the reason it was easy is that Steve, at the time, was still learning the game and still trying to grow in the game. And eventually, we get to a point and I think we end up losing to the Raiders, and we lose to the Raiders, and after that game, we decided as a team, if we're going to lose because somebody beat us, not because we gave the game away.
Who stepped to the center of that room? Who led that conversation? Am I sitting near that person?
Well, at that moment, yeah. That moment, the reason I felt like I had to say that is that we were going down. And we were going down for all the wrong reasons. We were going down because we were distracted. We were going down because we didn't care. We were going down and we didn't even realize that we were going down because fundamentally we didn't care for each other. And so we decided quickly that if we're going to lose, let's lose exhausting every moment. Let's lose giving everything that we possibly can give. And it worked.
I mean, think about where you ended up. You went from that, literally a divided locker room, physically a divided locker room, into the Super Bowl. And your opponent is Cincinnati again, and they have a running back by the name of Ickey Woods that I guess the younger generation now knows as somebody who spikes meat in a supermarket. But back then, he was this serious, big-time running back and somebody that you said going in, we're not going to see any Ickey shuffle in this upcoming Super Bowl.
Well, I can tell you this. I wanted to make sure that Ickey Woods knew that I'm going to respect him, but he's going to respect me.
So he sees you in the hole, or more, I guess said properly, you see him in the hole, and we will see a woo hit in these highlights of Super Bowl 23.
35 of the first quarter. Woods again. Oh, is he hit? What a pop by Ronnie Lott. The 49ers have stopped Ickey Woods.
He has not been the kind of factor so far in this ball game that I expected him to be.
And has not been able to generate an Ickey shuffle today. Weiss has just set a Super Bowl record with 12 catches. He's in motion. Montana. Touchdown, John Taylor.
Prescient words by Dick Enberg. So you got another.
Yes.
But you heard Dick Enberg say on the way out, we wonder if that ride that Bill Walsh was going to take on the shoulders of players was going to be his last, and it was.
It was his last, and I think what's amazing to me was here was a guy who was at the pinnacle. And I remember sitting there talking with him about all of this. And I know that he wished that he hadn't.
Were you disappointed with how he left?
I was disappointed with the fact that we never really got to say goodbye, that we didn't really have a way of saying goodbye. It's tough when people decide in how they handle their closure. And it was tough. At the same time, George Seifert was going to step in his shoes, and there were other people that were trying to step in his shoes, and a lot of us we were pulling for George. We wanted George to get the job.
He was the right guy. He was your position coach.
He was my position coach, but then he was also the defensive coordinator. We all felt that he was the right guy, and he steps in and takes us back to the Super Bowl. We were on a mission, and the reason we were on a mission because we knew that if we don't get back to the Super Bowl, then this is all for naught. That Super Bowl was about Bill. It wasn't about our team. It wasn't about all the things that he had built, the culture that he had put in place. So
somebody on the outside could read it like you're saying, well, we wanted to prove that we could win without Bill Walsh. And you're not disagreeing with that, but I think for the right reasons. You wanted to prove that you could win without Bill Walsh because of what Bill Walsh had built over the years. And with his exit, your success doesn't leave with him.
All of us was on this quest of saying, hey, man, we respect you, Bill, but we respect you because you gave us so much. And you gave us so much that we have to find a way to live up to his excellence.
Well, that next year, you do play in the Super Bowl with George Seifert as head coach. You do win it after Bill Walsh has left. I mean, it's a blowout, 55-10 was the final in that Super Bowl. How'd that feel?
I remember running off the field after that game, and Guy McIntyre says, "You know what? That wasn't our best game. That was not our best game." And I remember sitting there looking at him saying, "You know what? He's right.
55-10 in the Super Bowl was not your best.
It probably wasn't good enough for Bill at that day. Even though it was an unbelievable game, it probably wasn't our best game."
Now you have a chance for a three-peat in 1990. And the way that season kind of unfolds, I mean, you get off to a great start. The Giants get off to a great start. The New York Giants kind of became this rivalry, de facto rivalry in the NFC, and the two teams meet. That's, I mean, my God, a three-peat in the NFL is just insane. Hadn't happened.
Yeah, doesn't happen. There was so much on the line going into that game, so much that we were trying to accomplish, so much when you think about the history of football, so much that you're trying to do to separate yourself for a lot of reasons. All we had to do was stop them. Yes, they got the ball at the end, but we had to stop them. To this day, that moment changed history. Those are the things that you wait for those days, to get to that moment of your life where you can have that and you can say that you won 3 in a row. And that was a tough moment, watching them kick the field goal. That was a tough moment for us to lose that game.
So it's not long thereafter that you find out, I believe this is right, during the Pro Bowl from a writer, that the San Francisco 49ers, who you've given it all to, have put you in Plan B free agency, which is basically a way station to them saying, we're moving on, right?
Yeah. What was tough for me was that here was history that you were playing for that moment, and here was that taken away from you. Here is a new environment, and here's all of what we built was gone. It's over. It's done. To then to go to being a rookie again, to learning a whole new system.
I mean, you end up with the Raiders.
Yeah.
Of all teams across the Bay, and at the beginning of the season, you're struggling. And I know you're asking yourself, well, were the 49ers right? Am I finished? Did they pull the trigger at the right time? And then something clicks for you with the Raiders, and your second half of the season is all world.
Yeah, and it turns out that what clicks is that I start to really understand the defense. I start to understand the process. I start to believe that I'm a rookie, start to believe all the things that I talked about early on in my life.
This 4-time Super Bowl champion has put himself, at least mentally, in the class of a rookie going to the Raiders, and you end up leading the league with 8 interceptions, and you're right back there as this great all-pro.
Because a lot of life is about reinventing yourself. It's repurposing the opportunity that you believe in, knowing that if you just trust it, that it will come to you. I think we spend so much time thinking about the past and not thinking about the future.
So you go from the Raiders to the Jets to the Chiefs for a short while, and then you retire. Any regrets as to how it all ended?
When you come in this game or you come into anything, you give everything you can. You try to get as much respect as you possibly can, and then you leave. You don't have any regrets. You exhaust moments, you exhaust life, and you move on. And you got to ultimately try to do that in other aspects of your life, or you'll miss those great moments. You'll miss the great moments that are around us, around all of us. And so I'm trying not to miss those great moments.
You have a great moment when you go into the Hall of Fame because of who presented you.
Yeah, my dad presented me at the Hall of Fame, and that was a great moment thank you.
Man, that's so cool to share that moment with your father.
Yeah, because as he said, and as he's done all his life, is give everything he can. He's respect everything that he's done with helping our family. And I really believe that those moments are meant for him. Those moments are meant for all the sacrifices that he gave us. It's meant for him because of all the things that he had to endure growing up and being who he is. I think the great thing about life is you got to tip your hat. And the way you tip your hat is moments where you can allow him to illuminate all of what he's done for our family. And
That moment then became as much about him as it did about you.
It did. And for a lot of reasons, it should be. It should be.
So here's my last question. What's next? What's next for you?
What's next for me, and I really say this all the time, don't know what's next. What I do know is that I got to exhaust the moment. I really want to try to exhaust the moment. More importantly, I think one of the great things about being in this setting is that hopefully people walk away understanding that there's more than just a guy going out trying to do woo. That I'm trying to do woo every day. And I'm trying to live woo every day.
That's great. So here it is. Hold on. You didn't sign up for this, but this is how we end the show. And don't woo me after I ask you a couple of these. Would you rather have X-ray vision or bionic hearing?
I think I'd go with the hearing. And the reason why I want to go with the hearing is that, think about how many plays that I would have been able to listen to. Think of how many plays I would have been able to listen to.
Sometimes it seemed like you could hear.
I wanted to hear more.
Okay. Would you rather be a master of every instrument or be fluent in every language?
I would rather be fluent in every language because I still think that I haven't connected to as many people as I should be able to connect to.
Would you rather only be able to watch horror movies or only Lifetime movies?
I'm going to say this right now. I don't watch horror movies, so.
So you're like Ronnie Lott in front of a Lifetime movie or like Lonesome Dove or something.
Oh, yeah, that may look all day long for me.
And finally, what makes a great tackler?
A great tackler is a person who understands his soul and is able to express it in a way that every time he allows all the energy to come out, that we see it and we feel it when he hits someone. And that not only do we feel it and see it, that it gives us a little woo.
Ladies and gentlemen, the master of woo, Ronnie Lott.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.